All right, welcome to the Dreamer's Journey podcast, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I want to talk about a specific story I had in one of my relationships. And I know I talk a lot about relationships, and I'm a big believer in that relationships help us discover who we are. And I'm talking about this because it always connects to my business and my dream. And having a dream is also relationships that are going to be in that dream. If you're looking to have a marriage in your life, if you're looking to have family, as for me, that is something that I do want. So this one is more specifically about a story in my understanding, in the definition of a man. So where do I begin? I begin, I think, with all of my relationships. So one thing that I've noticed about myself was that I always had a reoccurring theme in my relationships with this understanding that many of the women that I dated didn't believe that I was man enough. This could be for an array of reasons. It could be, for instance, my sexual insecurities that I had when I was younger. It could be just my work ethic or my mindset that I had at that time. It could have been just the way I handled things or took them out on dates or stuff like that. There could also have been a component to that in where sometimes people say things to get actions done, actions to come out of you. So I've experienced a lot of that in my life, and I'm sure many men have. But what I think the one story that made me realize that this was a reoccurring problem that was on the subconscious level of my mind, and that I didn't want to face it dead on, was in the relationship I had during 2018. So this was, if you go back to one of my episodes, episode number 2, I talk about this relationship a little bit, but there's a specific story that I want to tell that made me realize this after this breakup. So me and my girlfriend at that time had gone to Hawaii. And in Hawaii, we were hiking, we were doing beautiful things, right? Going to the beach, doing a whole bunch of stuff. There was this one mountain that we were going to go hiking on, right? That she really wanted to see and climb. And I remember that day being a very misty kind of wet day. It wasn't pouring out, but it was definitely cloudy. It was definitely misty. The ground was definitely wet. So we got there, we go and we look at this, this overlook, and we see the beautiful land of Hawaii. And then we go and we're like, oh, where's the trail to go up the mountain? Because we were super excited to see the view from this high point on the mountain. So we go and we're looking for an entrance for a trail, and there wasn't any. So then we start walking down a little bit more, and we see that there's this entrance, but it's closed off. It says it's way too dangerous for people to go in. So it says no trail hiking around here, no hiking. So we're like, all right. But we see a path, and then we see a couple coming down, and we're like, oh, all right, let's go, let's do it. So we start walking through this, forest, and the ground is wet. So now we're starting to climb. We're starting to get to a high point. So we're climbing. We're all muddy at this point. And then we get to the side of the mountain. And on the side of the mountain, you can see basically a 5,000 to, I'm going to say, 8,000 foot drop. So now it's getting relatively scary. Not only that, but the wind is, picking up because we're high. And also it's like a rainy day. So we're there on the edge of the mountain, and I see, I'm starting to think, I don't know if this is so safe anymore. So we continue, and I see that we're getting close, and we got to keep going on the outer side of the mountain, then keep coming back in, then go back out. And then we get to this point where it was pretty dangerous in the terms of like, if you think about on the side of the mountain, you probably had about 12 inches to basically 12 to 16 inches to basically kind of walk. So she was behind me, and I was in front kind of leading the way and trying to decide which path is the best to go through. And basically it's like 16 inches of like just this path, and then the side on my right hand side was a drop, 5,000 to 8,000 foot drop. So then we get to this point, and I see a point where we have to go and actually climb some rocks, right? And on the side of those rocks are the drops. So I made the decision at that point. I was like, all right. I was like, babe, we're not going to do this. This is way too dangerous. You know, we don't have the right shoes. We don't have the right equipment or the right knowledge to be able to do this. I never gone rock climbing without equipment. And I know for sure she's never done rock climbing, period. So I was like, we're not going to take the chance. And I could just see it on her face, the disappointment in that decision that I made. And she could, you could tell that she was upset. You could tell that she was upset. And then, she looked at me and she was like, what are you afraid of? What are you scared of? She's like, come on. And I was like, no, this is way too dangerous. I was like, we're not going to do it. So obviously she's upset. We take a couple pictures because we're pretty high up. And then we start heading down, right? And that was that basic story. And the gist of like Hawaii and in general, at least at that time, I was a lot more like fearful of things because I grew up in the suburbs and I grew up in a pretty urban area where I'm a city boy. My dad taught in New York City. So like I've never been around nature that much. So things like, deep water, because as most of you might know, I don't know how to swim. So going into deep water, certain animals or creatures that I've never seen, I'm just like, what the hell is this? So she started seeing these things, these insecurities and fears that I had, and she started making her own correlation. She never expressed it, but obviously the language that she would use when she was disappointed and upset, this is what she would say. She would say that you're constantly scared, and it was the truth. I admitted it. Like I was scared of some of those things. So when we got back home and fast forward to the breakup, when I broke up with her, when we broke up, I felt like the decision was made because I wasn't man enough. That was the assumption I had in my head. And this one story was the one story that kept playing over and over in my mind. So one day I was really sad, and I was like, this was after the breakup. I was with Francis. I was really sad, and I was crying, and he was like, yo, come on, man. Let's get to work. And I was like, yo, bro, I can't think, man. He's like, all right, let's meditate. So he's leading me through this meditation, and he's like asking me questions. He's like, think about, the time that you were with your girl, and find out what's making you sad. Look at all the good memories. And I was trying to go through all the good memories, and the only ones that I can see were the ones of me showing this weakness, this lack of manlyhood that I had. And I started crying in front of Francis. And this is when I told him the story. I told him the exact story that I told you guys. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm a man. And this was something that I struggled with for a very long time in my life. I struggled with the confidence of attracting women or having a healthy relationship. I struggled with confidence in bed. I struggled with the confidence to be able to speak. I felt like I was always a quote unquote nice guy. So like I didn't feel manly, and what I thought the things that men were, like these strong, charismatic, outgoing individuals who fight and are scared of shit. I wasn't that guy. At least in my head, I didn't think so. And, that story got to me. That story really made me understand that this was a underlying issue in my development, something that kept blocking me from transforming and being the person and the man that I actually wanted to be. But I first had to acknowledge that I am a man and that there isn't this one definition of a man. And Rances brought something up in that story which made me understand, like, your decision making doesn't define you as a man. What defines you as a man is the morals and the values that you have and the words that you use to stick to those morals and values. And that day on the mountain, when I made that decision to not go and take that chance into the unknown, the uncertainty of that without any prior knowledge, was a decision that a man would have made if he was trying to protect his family. And that's when I realized that I am a man, and that me seeing the lack of that was the reason that I felt that way. And all the previous relationships that I had before was because I was trying to fit a perception of what I thought the woman wanted me to be, because I didn't know the man that I was. And when Rances pointed that out to me and pointed out that, listen, man, you are a man because you made a decision to protect her. You made a decision to protect both of you. And that's what any man would have done. And he asked me the question that kind of solidified it was, do you still believe that you made the right choice, the right decision? And I was just like, yes, 100%, absolutely. And that's when I knew that my validation, especially when it came to women, always came from the woman. It never came from self. And it was from that point on that I understood where I needed to transform. And that, yes, I was fearful of a lot of things, right? But that does not make me less of a man. That makes me a human. And that's okay. And that transferred off into my career and my progression as an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is being able to put yourself out there, being able to take risks, which I have done. Before I even met this girl, I took the risk of leaving $80,000 and trying to build a vision that I believed in, trying to build the school, pursuing that. I left, my car, all my possessions to be able to do that. I took a large amount of risk. And it's because I believe in something. It's because I have a moral, I have a value that I believe in, and that's what makes me a man. So when I understood this, I was able to transfer this over into my idea of becoming an entrepreneur and what an entrepreneur is. And in reality, what an entrepreneur is a process of self-development. It's a process of understanding fear, of understanding risk. And your relationship with fear and risk as an entrepreneur is what makes you successful. So it was that story that kind of like put it all together for me and said, okay, These are the things that I need to change about myself in order to become successful in this realm. And these are the things that are great about myself that I would never change. And these things together are what makes me a man. So when you start doubting yourself, when you start trying to fit a perception of other people just to be accepted, is when you're lacking in your life. Because you're no longer looking inwards, you're looking outwards, you're looking externally. You're looking for acceptance when acceptance will never really happen until you accept yourself. And I had to accept myself as a man. I had to accept myself as a human being before I can accept anybody else. And fundamentally, that's why the relationship never worked out. Was because I was trying to fit a perception of what she thought a man was supposed to be. And I don't even know what that was because I never had that conversation with her. So I was trying to fit a perception of an assumption of what I thought a perception would be. And this is what happens in relationships most of the time, but that's a whole nother topic. But now, I'm super grateful for that moment that I had with Rancis, where he led me through that meditation, because I felt like that was a very, very transformative period. But that moment itself in the basement, me crying, him leading me through the meditation, was a pivotal moment. And that 1 hour that we spent together was pivotal in the direction that the business went, the growth of the business, the growth of my finances, my personal development, my transformation, like everything, my physical transformation as well. Like that moment right there was the pivotal moment. And I'm super grateful for that moment. So I guess what you guys can take away from this is dive deep down into your stories that hold the foundation for beliefs that make you doubt yourself. Because in those stories, in those traumas, in those little tiny details are the gems that allow you to change, that allow you to transform, to allow you to see the person that you once were and the person that you are now. And that allows you to be grateful for who you are in this moment. So guys, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that one. And until next time, peace.